Money Radio, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to welcome Laura Bramnick from TalkRealEstateAZ.com. That's TalkRealEstateAZ.com. Laura, of course, is an attorney specializing in real estate law, as well as a realtor. She has an active Arizona real estate license, and she really is a consumer advocate for her clients, whether it be residential or commercial real estate or land transactions. TalkRealEstateAZ.com. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Sinclair.
Good to see you again.
It's good to be here.
480-624-2705 if you have questions about real estate, pretty much anything to do with real estate.
Yes, pretty much.
Or if you would like someone to help you with your next real estate transaction. 480-624-2705. Laura, there are some big changes coming when it deals with regulations surrounding purchases of real estate. And I think a lot of folks aren't really ready for it.
No, these changes have been coming, and there's been lots of activity behind the scenes with lenders and the Arizona Association of Realtors. They're trying to update their forms. And so it's all been triggered by the Dodd-Frank Act, which you and I know is a federal law that was enacted several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of different sections to it, and this particular one that applies to people getting a mortgage, it's supposed to be consumer friendly, give the consumer more information.
And more protection.
More protection and information that they can understand.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yes, it's a very good idea. Now, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau was established by the Dodd-Frank Act, but it's not under the lending arm of the government. It's actually a division of the Treasury, and it's self-funded, so that they are very aggressive at regulation and at instituting fines and penalties, because that's how they fund themselves.
And this is going to change the paperwork, the documentation, the regulatory forms
Yes.
that are a part of any real estate transaction.
Yeah, if you've bought and sold a home, then you're usually familiar with
a big stack of paperwork.
the good faith estimate, which you get, that gives you your loan payment, your closing costs, and those types of things, and also the truth in lending, which gives you your interest rate. So that's changing, and also the settlement statement that you're given when you close the loan, that is changing. They're giving new names to these documents, and they are giving lenders much more responsibility and liability for these documents. So the changes really are going to affect sellers and buyers, where the buyer's getting a mortgage.
Well, that's an interesting point then. What if someone is a cash buyer? Does that mean, because we have a fairly tight market, we talked about
Yes.
the Phoenix real estate market last week.
Yes.
And
We have relatively low supply.
yes.
And especially in certain price ranges.
And you mentioned that you'd seen some multiple offers on some properties.
Yes, yes.
So does that mean that the cash buyer has an immediate advantage over someone who's using a mortgage?
In my opinion, yes. Because these regulations, it's not just their new forms, but their new timelines. And so the consensus is that it's going to extend the time to close escrow, because there are waiting periods. There are periods that the buyer now has to review documents that are required that cannot be waived.
Cannot be waived.
Cannot be waived.
So how long is it going to take to close escrow now?
Well, they're advising, and by they, I mean the Arizona Association of Real Estate, the Arizona Department of Real Estate, the title companies, and the legal community that's involved in the mortgage lending business is advising buyers and sellers to give an extra 15 days. So where a close of escrow with a conventional loan is normally 30 days,
Right.
they're requesting 45.
This is probably something pretty important to know when you're putting in an offer.
Yes.
Or when a seller is receiving an offer.
Right, that's correct. The seller wants to make sure that they understand what the timeline is, and that their realtor needs to make sure, or their lawyer, or both, they know what the timelines are, so that the buyer's required to do what's necessary in the minimal amount of time, which means that the buyer has to have a good lender on board with knowledge of the changes and with all their software updated and efficient.
I'm thinking this also changes some of the rules regarding what a buyer needs to present to make sure they are actually getting the mortgage. The idea between pre-qualifying and pre-approval.
Yeah, there's a new pre-qualification form, and in the past, well, even currently till August 1st, you had to submit your pre-qual form within 5 days of submitting the contract, if you hadn't submitted it with the contract. Now you have 10 days. So that has been expanded. And also, one rule that I actually feel is going to be a bit of a problem is that when a buyer calls a lender to get pre-qualified, the lender has to give a document called a loan estimate within 3 days.
Is that like the good faith estimate?
Yes, it's similar to the good faith estimate. It has a little more information,
Okay.
and the buyer has to sign that they've received it. So the lender has to prove they've delivered it, and the lender has to prove that the buyer's received it. And so the big issue is that the lender can take verbal information like income and expenses and pull your credit, but they cannot require that you supply written documentation. So my recommendation is that buyers offer that because it's going to benefit them.
This is where your background and experience as a real estate attorney really can prove helpful. You can actually offer advice on what to do to make that transaction go smoothly.
Yes, based on the new regulations, I think it's important that the contract be specific about what the buyer's responsibilities are in terms of their timeline, knowing what the law says, because especially to protect sellers and also to protect buyers. Otherwise, they're going to be competing for houses, and their offer is not going to be accepted.
Huge point. Now, if you are thinking about a transaction in real estate, residential, commercial, land, doesn't matter. You really need to contact Laura Bramnick, because there are some new rules and regulations going into effect August 1st. It can make a huge difference in your success. Laura's number is 480-624-2705, 480-624-2705. The website, talkrealestateaz.com, 480-624-2705. Laura, great information, vital information, and timely as well.
And
Thank you.
we'll talk about this more as it gets closer.